Okay, so as the title says, we believe in prevention more than, say, detection. The speakers today have been incredibly wonderful in setting me up, particularly the panelists. They talked about all kinds of great stuff. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the trends in the industry, and then I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing to address those trends. So there was a good argument about whose responsibility it is to protect people, and there's also a really good argument around how much you protect them and if you protect them. And so I won't come down on either side of that argument, but as a company, our belief is that we can protect by preventing, and so that's what I'm going to focus on. Real quick, my name's Evan. I head up threat prevention for what we call the AMA region, so that's Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. What that means in practice is I travel a lot. So I flew in, and what's nice about that is I meet a lot of people, and I hear a lot about what's going on. So I love talking. After this, I'll be around. Please come talk to me if you have any questions. I will actually share my contact details as well. So what's the situation? Things are accelerating. You heard everybody talk about this. Attacks are accelerating. They're actually becoming more sophisticated as well. And just to give you a sense there, more malware was created in the last year than in the previous 10 years combined. So to give you some more context to that, last year there was 27 million new strains of malware were created. And if you look at that, then 18 infections occur every second. So by the time I'm done talking, there'll be 27,000 new infections from that malware. When you get infected, it takes about 8 months for a company to discover that an infection is in their network. And worse than that, it takes about, on average, 32 days to correct that if it's a data loss incident. And it costs you about $1,035,760 US. So it's expensive. You heard people talk a little bit about Target, and they've spent $148 million to date cleaning up. They also, their banking clients have spent $200 million in loss, and this is before the lawsuits start. So it's right around going to be probably around $1 billion just for that mess up. So things get complicated because about 40% of the organizations out there have actually downloaded what's considered unknown, right? It's not known by the things that are out there. 200,000 new threats are found every single day, right? So if you've been outside and you've seen our intelligence map, 40% of what happens in Australia is from botnets. And that means that things are getting infected. Oh, looking at the wrong thing. To complicate things a little bit further, you heard this conversation. Someone asked about the threat landscape. And we also talk about the surface. So what's happened over time is they used to target people. I don't like you, I'm going to hack you, right? Brian talked about hackers going after each other. Then it moved on to attacking corporate networks. And now we've actually moved into the Internet of Things and strategic infrastructure. But also important is that the attackers have changed. It used to be a guy in the basement of his mom's house. Now it's moved on. You've got groups like Anonymous. But you've also got nation-sponsored hacking. I hate to admit it, but if you look in our intelligence, the US is actually one of the biggest offenders in terms of cyber attacks. So over time, this surface of attack that you can go after, that includes all the devices. I have a smartwatch on my hand, I've got a Fitbit in my pocket, and I've got a phone. I've got 3 different things you can attack. So that surface has grown into the billions. And that's not in the future, that's actually right now. So what's the implication of all this? We're all going to be a bit vulnerable. And you'll hear people talk. One guy just said, it's not going to be if, it's really when. And I think that's accurate. So I'd ask a question. If I look at the audience, how many of you believe you have a botnet infection in your company? I saw a few. Now, look at the first statistic, 73%. That either means that a lot of you don't know it's happening, or you just don't want to talk about it. But 3 out of 4 people in this room, your company has got bought, right? So the second one here is P2P, right? So what's wrong with P2P? You can download some music, maybe a movie. What does it do to your company? It opens a big fat back door that someone can come in and inject malware into your company's network. So it's not great from a corporate perspective. The next one is anonymizers. Same concept, right? It's great if you're in China and you're trying to hide from the government. Not so great when you're hiding your behavior from a corporation. The next one is the data loss, right? Darth Vader would be super pissed. 88% of companies had potential data loss, right? That's massive. If you think about that statistic, that means, and data is probably the #1 most important thing. Most IP in the world is actually stored, right, as code now. If you think about the companies out there, Google, Apple, their IP is code. And the last one is that 40% of companies have downloaded unknown malware. This is a variant on something that may be known or something completely new we've never even heard of. And so the net effect of all of this is that we're vulnerable. There we go. So what's our stance? We believe in multi-layered security. So look, it's all been doom and gloom. The sky is falling. What are we going to do? We actually believe that you can effectively prevent attacks by using a multi-layered approach. And the reason we do that is if you look across it, we want next generation network security, which involves several things. Next generation threat prevention, which is what I'm in charge of. Also, multi-layered mobile security. If any of you saw what Tomer did earlier, if that didn't scare you a little bit, I will show you the demo again. Because typically when you hear your own voice being recorded, you get a little worried. And the last one is that we believe in virtualized security. So for virtualized systems, as well as public, private, and hybrid clouds. And this combination of a multi-layered approach is how you can prevent attacks. So what does that look like? You heard a little bit earlier, right? If you look at the top, you got the virus, antivirus software. And what did Sony say? It got by our antivirus. And there was some, the gentleman from Telstra, he kind of laughed about it, which is, there's a lot of companies that are smarter than that, right? So not only do they have antivirus, they now have IPS for known attacks. They also keep antibot to keep bots from communicating back outside the network. And then more importantly, we've started to add in this concept of sandboxing. And we actually look at sandboxing as a dual layered approach, both operating system as well as CPU level. And then finally, we look at this concept of document reconstruction. More than 80% of malware is still delivered via email in documents. And so this concept of cleaning documents through extraction has been added. So what are we doing about this? The first thing we looked at is extraction. And this is something that just went live. It came out of our R&D department. And we did this as a direct response to the market. What's the one issue with sandboxing? Does anyone know? It takes time, right? And it can take a long time. Now, we're fast. We test very fast in the market. We average around 4 minutes. But that still is time wasted. Extraction can be done in 1 to 5 seconds. And that's why we've added it. So what does that look like? Basically, what you do in the extraction world is you take blocks and you can reconstruct the document as a searchable PDF that someone can get in seconds. We do this because it's completely safe. If you prefer, we just clean out the document with active content, right? And those are the 2 ways we would approach this. And the reason we do this is it's fast. This works in conjunction with the other things that we do in terms of sandboxing or emulation. CPU level is a very complex topic, so I'm going to let this video speak for me. Eventually. Bueller? There we go.
Zero-day and unknown malware are extremely sophisticated threats, undetectable by traditional antivirus engines. Sandboxing techniques are being used to detect these advanced threats, looking for malicious activities at the operating system once the malware is active. Traditional sandboxing technology is very effective, but not enough anymore. Advanced hackers design new evasion techniques to stay undetected. This gap can be addressed by detecting threats one step before the computer gets infected, at the exploitation stage. Hackers exploit software vulnerabilities at the CPU level. There are several exploitation methods. But the most popular one is rope. When opening a malicious document, rope hijacks small pieces of legitimate code from the memory and manipulates the CPU to load and execute the actual malware. Detecting this manipulation at the CPU level is the key to stopping attacks before they even happen. Checkpoint Next Generation Zero-Day Protection is the only sandboxing solution that integrates both operating system level and CPU level threat prevention engines, eliminating threats at the point of pre-infection and increasing malware catch rate. It is operating system agnostic technology and is resilient to sandboxing evasion techniques. And most importantly, it is the first true zero-day detection engine, as it stops whatever malware would be downloaded and executed. To learn more, visit checkpoint.com.
So CPU is something that we acquired. We bought the company called Hyperwise. And the reason we bought it is it adds another layer to our protection. Smart guys that are bad have learned how to evade certain things. They've learned how to evade OS level sandboxing. And so we've added the CPU level. It focuses on exploit. And the goal is to detect and to block anything that they try to do that would evade normal sandboxing. As mentioned, it actually works in conjunction. So you're familiar with OS level sandboxing. In this case, you can block things very quickly. We test in about the 4-minute range for identification, and we test at nearly 100%. It's about 99.5. We've added to that the CPU level, and this actually gives you another level to get around evasion. So we are now evasion resistant. And you put these two things together, and we believe it's very, very effective. So the other thing we need to look at is, what do you do with something once you find it? And that's where the intelligence side comes in. So I don't know if anyone's looked at our map that we had outside, but what do we do with this intelligence? In this case, you can see 10 million bad reputation events, 700K malware connections, and 30,000 malware file events. These are all different types of attacks that are detected every single day in our cloud. And this is information we collect. And that's interesting, right? So where do we get it from? I've had people ask me this. Sensors, right? We get them from gateways. We get them from sandboxing. We also get them from our partners. And if you're in a specific vertical like banking and telco, we also have IntelliStore partners that would give us specific intelligence that we could then deliver. So it's interesting, right? Collecting intelligence is interesting, but you need to do something with it. How do you make it useful? And for us, that's being able to deliver it as actionable intelligence. So how does that work? You heard earlier about our architecture, right? Software-defined protection. And the way that works is that we collect all this information and deliver it in real time. And that's across the network. So it doesn't matter what you're doing, if it's your endpoint, right? Your network security, mobile, your virtual systems, or your cloud, right? And that's how we make the intelligence useful. So these are the things we've done to address. So we've talked a little bit about product to address trend, but more importantly, nobody's perfect, right? We heard everybody talk about that, and we're not perfect as well. So is anyone familiar with these happenings from last year? Heartbleed, shell shock, and poodle. What's interesting about us is that how fast we fix these. And it wasn't that we did a signature, we actually did an OS level fix. And so our R&D team stays all night until these things get fixed. So not one of these lasted over 24 hours for us. And it's something interesting to consider, right? With any vendor you're working with, what is their level of commitment to working towards something when something goes bad. So we're not perfect. Things will happen. We were affected by these. But the speed with which we react and our commitment level to fixing them is something we do for our customers. And this is also part of how we addressed the trends in the world. We know new things are going to happen. Some of you may have seen this, is we're big on unified management. We want you to be able to maintain everything through a single pane of glass. You hear a lot about consolidation, and consolidation is many things, right? There's consolidation in industry, right? We've done some M&A this year. Consolidation in the network itself, maybe going to one or fewer vendors to make things simpler. And then there's also this consolidation in terms of management. Because if you think about it, it's how much time do you spend, how many people hours do you spend in management? So we've done a very good job in this space, but we've continued to innovate because we think that that's important. Okay, so talk a little bit about trends, where we sit in the world, the actions we've taken. So is there any benefit to all of this, or is it just, action for the sake of action, right? For us, we're pretty proud to have been recognized in the market, right? So third-party verification is always interesting, and it's appreciated. So we're very proud to be recognized from a market perspective. You may ask, what about the customers? And so for us, customer benefits are important. Next-gen threat, then we've added to it operating system and CPU-level emulation, extraction, and intelligence. And what that gives the customer is a near-perfect catch rate. And more importantly, it's threat prevention at the speed of your business. So we're focused on prevention, not detection. The next-gen zero-day protection, we know things are coming, right? And we want it to be as resilient to evasions as possible so that we can detect and remove malware as fast as humanly possible. The last thing is that our architecture is the foundation for consolidation through unified management. And Gartner actually calls us the gold standard, and we want to basically live up to that as well as extend that leadership position. And that's for our customers. So this is our vision, and we support our vision of a secure future through innovation. This is our company, and this is me. My request to everybody is, if you have a question, you don't understand something, you'd like to argue, that's my phone number and my email, so please call me. Okay, and I'll be outside if you want to talk later. I want to leave you with one final thought from the prettiest security expert I know. She said, just because we're vulnerable doesn't mean we have to be exploitable. So I would leave you with this: be like Taylor Swift. Thank you.